Welcome to GameWell, the podcast about a thriving future in games, from well-being and creativity to optimization and performance.
Welcome to another episode of GameWell. Today I have with me Alexis Gresoviac. He is well known in the games industry. You have worked on so many interesting titles. The one that is popping out for me, just because that game means so much to me, is when you worked on World of Warcraft. I've seen, and you are helping all the management in games to make sure that they're doing the things that they need to be doing. Welcome, Alexi. Could you tell us a little bit more and maybe summarize it in a way that you feel would be representative of what you're helping with out there?
Yeah, so first, thank you very much, Kevin, for having me today in your podcast. I was listening all of them, and I think that you are bringing so much value to the game industry by trying to raise the awareness about well-being and mental health. And I think that having different people coming to your podcast to give their own perspective on this matter that is super important, especially we can see what's happening right now in the game industry. It's pretty tough. So I think there is a real value. So it's a real pleasure for me to be here with you. To introduce myself a little bit, so I have close to 25 years of experience in the gaming industry. I'm French, but I never worked in France because I had a very, very big passion for Japan. So I decided to go live there as soon as I could. I even opened some relationship with a university in Japan to try to leave my country, and I succeeded. And then after I stayed there, I did some internship. Then I became a little bit the Mr. Game of France Telecom Company over there, until I was headhunted by Gameloft, where I did 13 years, close to 13 years, until it was bought by basically by Vivendi. And at that time I left, and this is where I joined Blizzard. So I have more than 20 years experience as a managing director, and for different companies. So Gameloft, I was country manager for France Telecom. Gameloft, I was managing director of Blizzard Korea, which was pretty big operation. I was also a strategic advisor, and basically I had the mission to build the mobile business for Bethesda. And after I joined a startup in Germany as a CEO, until it was acquired by Huge Games, where I became the general manager of their German studio in Berlin, and until I moved for 2 years for a Swedish audiobook company to become the head of international. And now I have created and established my own company called Ace Consulting Group, with the objective to bring my background, my experience, and my skill in management to help the companies, can be startup, mid-sized company, or larger companies, to really guide them to prevent bad management or mismanagement, to help them grow, to help them raise some funds, and also proposing some executive coaching for some people. They believe it's necessary. It can be when they are inside the company, or because they are blocked by a situation, or they want to improve themselves in terms of self-development for the managers, or it can be as a transition career coach, especially when people are facing hurdle in life, and when, for example, they have been laid off and they are a little bit lost. This is where I can bring my expertise, and always trying to help everyone to take the right decision, and to manage the company properly, and to manage the life of people as manager the best way as possible. In a nutshell, this is what I would say.
Nice. Yeah, thank you also for highlighting the importance of mental health. And, in an ironic way, right? You're looking at how can we be good at making games? How can we be good at being an executive leader, a manager position within them? And what are the downfalls of this, right? And I think one connotation that I want to highlight is that often people have this idea that productivity is equal bad mental health or bad physical health or not thriving. And for me, they're actually not exclusive at all. It's inclusive. It's if you really manage to do both, you have higher productivity. What are you seeing with your work? What is something that you have seen out there in terms of productivity and well-being?
I think there are different. There were different era in the game industry. I
Mm,
think that there was the era where we were building it, and it was really progressing very fast. But for a very long time, you could produce a game with very few people, and the people that were producing game were producing for cost that have nothing in comparison with today's cost in terms of team and tools and all the necessary marketing and etc. And there were some tremendous success. And I think that, for example, the Blizzard game are one very good example.
mm,
When they have done StarCraft, it was
yeah.
not the same cost of today AAA title, but this is what created Blizzard as it is, as it was putting the foundation of what is a great game and can sell millions of copies. And then after we enter, and that was coming from the 3D with a larger team, larger size, larger budget. Larger budget means also that you need eventually to ship your game, and because you need to ship your game, there is much more pressure because there is more money, and this
Mm,
is where I think that this era that I will come probably from 1995 to probably I would say maybe 2015. That was a time that basically there was so many crunch time, and this is basically where this culture, starting from all the 3D games and this bigger project, this crunch culture came, and it became kind of the norm, which was not supposed to be, but it became the norm. Like we say, okay, you work for your passion, so basically you need to put everything into it, and this is also the game industry is a unique in the sense that it has revolved for a very long time and it still is for most of the companies based on the cash flow. So you need to release your game. Your game needs to be successful to generate some cash that will enable you to create another game.
mm,
Otherwise, everything dies. So it's almost a kind of constant reboot. There is no stability like you are building a product. Once you have your product, you can sell it constantly. It's not like that. And this is where this is this mix between, I would say, an industry and at the same time, this is an art form that you can never know what will happen. And basically, there were so many damages that were made that there was a kind of counter reaction that is coming since, I would say, the past 10 years, where uh, people are starting to say, stop, we do not want to have this crunch anymore. That's not good management. Also, we do not need to do that because the other industries, the other companies are not doing that.
mm,
So why is it a standard in the game industry? Why there is also this toxicity? Why there is all this kind of atmosphere that is unique to the game industry? And people are also, we can see from time to time, there are some news with very big studios that are starting to unionize, especially in the US, because that was one of the problem, and people need to start to pack together to realize that they need to defend their right, and it's not because you love video game that basically you should be completely uh, crushed by your passion. A passion, you should thrive on your passion. You should not be crushed by it.
yeah.
That's completely unnatural in that sense. And um, for a very long time, the management have used this uh, passion element, and it's still in a way to say to people, you do your best because this is what you like. This is video game industry. If you want to be in it, you need to comply with unreasonable requests.
Mm.
But I think things have started really to change right now. And I think there are more and more companies, more and more startups, more and more people who realize about that and that are really taking into consideration very seriously mental health and well-being of the employees, and they understand that they can be profitable, they can be productive, they can be efficient, they can make a great game without destroying the life of people. And
Yeah.
thankfully, it's starting to grow and grow this movement.
Yeah, that's a very good point. To my to what I'm hearing from people, it's also become this badge of honor. It's almost like um, your badge that you want to carry around. I've done a crunch here. I've done this much crunch, right? Some people still have that idea that in order for you to kind of be validated as part of the either the veterans or people that have really worked in games, you need to go through periods of crunch and kind of go into the ringer. And I guess it's the same in other things as well, where people that potentially like military trainings, for example, have this as well, where just individuals that have this idea of I had to go through the suffering, and so you need to go through the
Mm,
same suffering. So I will make
mm,
sure you're suffering in this way because this is how it's done. This is how the people are being created.
mm, mm,
And another thing that I'm hearing you say, well, it's maybe also because people are so passionate and intrinsically motivated because they really want to create these beautiful immersive experiences. It's very easy to motivate people to do more rather than if you would work in, I don't know, tobacco or something and you pretty much hate smoking and you
mm,
have to go and sell your cigarettes, then it would be very difficult to motivate other than extrinsic, which is more monetary and benefits and all these other things, right?
mm.
So there's something to say about the unique motivation of people that are creating games. What have you seen as good practices within when teams and organizations in order for them to either move away or build from the ground up to not have the crunch culture take place, but also for them not to go and be faced with a situation where you have to do it.
Yes, so first we need to realize that. So for me, I was living in Japan. I have worked with French companies, with Japanese companies, with US based companies. Even if I was working in the entities, but the mindset is can be different. So the culture is always very important. The way that people are working is different. There are some. We need to realize, there is the very good book called Culture Map that is explaining about the difference of culture, and you
Mm,
need to realize that when you are working in US, they have a certain way basically to work. Same in Japan and same in Europe. In a certain way, Europe is almost kind of unique because we are so used to be mixed together. It's almost part of us. We understand subconsciously almost the differences between uh, French, Italian, Nordic countries, and English, and etc. etc. and German,
mm,
but this is something that we we absorb, but we need as a manager we need to understand because it
mm,
will come into play. It depends on which country you are and what is the norm of the country. That's
mm,
already one thing. Um, the second thing is I think everything is always starting from the head, you know. So uh, the role of a manager is to not be what I will call bad management would be something that is toxic, like micromanagement or
yeah,
shouting to your employees. That's
mm,
not good management. This is bad management. And the point of a real manager is to be a leader. And the leader needs to bring, keep the vision, and onboard everyone to the vision. So people are working naturally to this vision.
mm,
So you do not have to force them to work. They are doing by themselves and they
mm,
are working together. because now there are larger teams. So it's always starting from the end. If the manager doesn't have the, I would say, the right compass, not the good value, not the good morality, is someone who is toxic, or is someone who is not trying to improve, or someone who is really, I would say, a kind of too much into a power play or political move, this kind of thing. This is also kind of a toxicity to the highest level. Then basically it will go down and everyone will suffer from it. And I think it has usually to come from the CEO. This is what I have seen in my
Yeah.
experience in my life. The CEO has a very, very important role as to pace the way that people will work, and also what are the values of the company. And
Yeah.
this is, for example, myself when I'm trying to help the companies, if really they want to become great companies, we have always to start from the values.
Mm.
And this is the most important because that will be your compass, so you know what you are ready to do and what you are not ready to do.
Mm.
Because after, it's not when you are into the action, when there is this stress, that basically you will be able to handle it. You need to take the decision before, so the values should be basically on your wall,
Yeah.
and you need to understand them, and you need to keep them always on track, so you are sure that when there will be hard times coming, and there will be always hard times coming in the game industry, you will know what you have to do. That's very, very important. And that's why, for me, there is some uh, way to do is to solve problems, but I make a difference myself. I'm always, I'm always explaining there is bad management and mismanagement. And if you want to bring well-being and mental health, you need to have good management versus bad management. Mismanagement is mistake of management. That's a difference. That's completely different. But here we are really talking preventing the bad management.
Okay. Yeah. So the image that I'm getting here, just to try to paint a picture, is I'm seeing the CEO almost like a guy with a torch that knows we're climbing this mountain, and he's running up the mountain. People are kind of able to see where they're going, so they're following the dude with the torch. And then bad management would be to not realize you're burning the trees behind you, and the team is kind of, being left to fight off the flames, but you're still going for the mountain.
Yes, the not so good managers will put everything, will endanger everything for the release of the game, of the product, whatever it costs. And that was the culture until, I would say, around 2015. Whatever is the cost, whatever happens, we do what we have to do. The problem is that you need to lead much more. Again, that's the difference between a leader and a manager. And I know that the situation can be very complicated because I have been myself in this kind of complicated
Yeah.
situation. And why it's complicated? For example, in my case, when I was in charge of an entity with many developers, a big production. But the thing is that we are a piece of a larger, mechanism, and when you are receiving instruction from above, this is where it can be conflicting. It can be
Okay.
conflicting with your value. It can be conflicting with the way you would like to handle the business. And there is a difference when this is your company, when you are the CEO, the founder, the co-founder, and the guy who has the power, and when basically you have to basically to roll the strategy that has been decided above. That's a very, very different. Again, from what I was listening to many of your previous podcasts, many people are talking about, for example, the crunch from the production point of view, uh, from how to manage yourself. Very important, and this is super important for everyone to understand about that. Manage yourself. Put your health and family as the most important element of your life, because the company is not here for that. So if you don't expect someone else to do it for you. So that's indeed very important. But the root, the cause of so many problems and so many people have been laid off and so many crunch time for nothing, etc., is the bad management at the upper stage. It's basically really the CEO, the CEO, all the C executive need to have the maturity to put in place the processes that will prevent this to happen. That's what I'm trying to drive the companies. That's extremely important. Even today, we see more and more some startups, some companies recruiting people who are dedicated to well-being, for example, and there will be a chief happiness officer, for example.
Mm.
And we have seen this kind of role. Uh, I think that that's interesting, in my opinion, in terms of management, but that's not good enough. Because basically, if you have, let's say, a board of directors with 10 people, and you have
Mm.
the chief happiness officer that's saying, we should do this, we should do that, and you have 9 other people who do not care,
Mm.
basically, you know that there are some people who have much more power into a company,
Yeah.
CEO, and CFO.
Mm.
Basically, their voice will always matter the most. And most of the time, they will be the co-founder. So it has to come from the, the top management, and to have the right values and to have the maturity. The biggest problem of the gaming industry, and it has always has been, is the lack of maturity. There is a profound lack of maturity from the top management that are not doing what they are supposed to do the way that other industries will be managed.
Mm.
It's not as rigorous, it's not as serious, and basically they consider it like, oh, there are young people coming, and let's nurture on them on their passion, even if they have to burn out, and even if they have to do some crunch up to the end to lead to burnout, depression, whatever you name it, and
Sure.
that's definitely not good. So there are so many things that can be done at the top to prevent all these bad things to happen as a
Mm.
kind of repercussion, as a
Mm.
consequences, and especially I would say on the production team, definitely.
Yeah, and I guess people also need to be realistic about where the money can be spent within an organization, right? And usually that's the top where people and so you can have both the most effect, but also you can actually do work there and work with professionals that have the right knowledge, just like yourself. I want to
Mm.
come. I want to come back and talk a little bit more about the values that you say. Uh,
Mhm.
could you speak more to that? How does an organization go on about identifying if they even have values in place? If so, what? And how they create them? And how can you make sure that the leader just doesn't just decide on values and then they don't align with the rest of the company?
Again, it's a question of maturity. If you ask to the top management, what are your values, and they cannot reply, that means they do not have any value. And then after, the value that you are doing needs to be again something that is, we say, time proof.
Mm.
This is something that it is general enough and precise enough. For example, you can say one of them can be customer first, or you can say community first, depending the companies. That is one of them. So there is this kind of things. You can put also, for example, happiness into one of the value. Why I'm
Mm.
saying that? Because if you want to bring some happiness to people, but you are doing that by not bringing happiness to the people working with you, how can it work? This is always what we say. How can you love other people if you don't love yourself?
Mm.
That's the first. You need to clean your house. That's uh, you need to swipe in front of your door first. So you need to build these values, and many companies are doing this exercise, and to put them in place, and it's part of a reflection. And you can say this is the founder's opinion. That's one way of doing it, depending the size of the company. But it can be much more. You can You can put all the employees depending the size, and you can create this kind of things. So there is absolutely no problem how you want to do it. But what is important is the what you are thinking and why you are doing it. Is because that will be very important for the future. It's not important at the time you are doing it. It's important for the hard time. This is what is extremely important.
Mm. Yeah. Okay, cool. I remember a conversation we had that was offline that wasn't on the podcast. You mentioned about how Japan is just operating a little bit different as a culture and the way that they've shifted, and maybe that they've figured some things out that are maybe not being done in the same way. And this could be a cultural thing, but it could also be an opportunity for learning. Do you remember what I was referring to here? Or?
Uh, Not sure exactly, but I can discuss about it. There is no
Sure.
problem. So about for example, for Japan, I think that each culture there is some pros and cons for
Mm,
all the cultures, and I think that since we are living, especially now, especially in the gaming industry, we are living in a very international world. Then that means that we have also the possibility, the choice to take uh, the best processes from everywhere. We don't have to stick to say that's just the way it is because it was always that way.
mm,
We can cherry pick basically what is the best to do. In the case of Japan, what is super interesting right now in comparison to, I would say, to the Western countries, is that we have seen in the past 2 years. Usually, we are considering there were 10,000 people laid off in 23, and there is already in the first 6 months 10,000, or it was 10,000, 10,000. But I think it's really double because, of course, we are looking at the big news like what Microsoft is doing, what Activision is doing, etc., etc. All these kind of things about this is the. But the reality is that you have so many startups, and they are also suffering a lot. They do not have the same cash flow, so
mm.
basically they suffer a lot. So I consider that when you read there is maybe 10,000 people who have been laid off, probably we are closer to 20,000 because there are so many people we are not talking about. So the difference is that all these laid off have been made mostly in Western countries. And
Mm,
in Japan, there is still, even if they are very international right now, they are very westernized, etc. Still, there are some kind of country values that you you do not basically you do not use people, you do not fire them just at your own convenience. It's
mm,
like there is a value of the people. They understand that what makes a great company is the people, and it's almost kind of parenthood figure
mm. Yeah.
from the manager. Uh, I'm taking care of you. There are some programs in Japan when you will just graduate from your university that you are taken in the big company depending your rank, depending how good was your university, etc. But basically you will be nurtured, and all the big corporation in Japan are recruiting very young people basically to train them because they understand the value of taking care of the new generation because the young people are the future of the companies. So this is what is very important, and they are creating this trust. They are creating also this sense of loyalty. So there is a lot of loyalty in Japan to the companies, and there is a lot of loyalty in Japan from basically the manager to the employees. And I
Mm,
think this is something that was, for example, talking as a French person, that was something that was very important in France also, but that is disappearing progressively. I cannot talk
mm,
for all the countries, that's why I'm naming my own country. But basically, that was something very important, and that was the foundation of so many companies like that.
yeah.
Today, it's a little bit like people are the expendables.
Mm,
There was the COVID, there was a good time. We recruit dozens of thousands of people. Then we don't need you. We just remove you. This is definitely not good management. That's basically using people as a kind of object, and you just push them away. And I would
Yeah.
say myself, okay, you want to be a good manager? Okay, now you show me what is your planning, what is your budgeting, what is your budget allocation, how do you do that, what is your roadmap, when are you planning to release your product, for example, if your game is not doing well, what
Mm.
is the plan B? How will
Mm.
you consider people? Should you recruit so many people if they are fired after? So you need
Mm.
to consider all the different options and to put in place some processes. In Japan, when they recruit, they are very careful about that, and they do not want to play with people and with the life of people. And definitely, as you know, I think it's very well known right now from everyone. The top of the top company in Japan for that is Nintendo. And Nintendo is an incredible company in the management of I would say human resources, but I don't really like the word resources. People that are used as resources, they are
Yeah.
really good with the human aspect of the people. And I can tell you, in 20 years in Japan, 13 years, close to 13 years in Gameloft, I have I have recruited in Japan, I think, more than 250 people.
Mm.
I have never seen on my desk, never, someone coming from Nintendo. I could see some people coming from, for example, Sony PlayStation. It happens that people are moving, but why people keep Nintendo in such high esteem? It's not only for the incredible quality of their games. It's
Mm.
not for what they are achieving, and each time they can change a little bit the paradigm of the game with bringing new ideas, something that was not existing before. Yes, but also the way that they are managing their company is just incredible. And I remember myself when I was visiting Nintendo, I was very lucky because the person who was in charge of me as account for Gameloft, he was a guy who was a little bit old. I think he was around his 60s. And in fact,
Nice.
that's the only person who once in the game industry since I started called me, telling me, "Oh, Alexi, I wanted to thank you for everything. I'm going to retirement." Something that I never had before, showing the longevity of people in Nintendo. When people enter Nintendo, they don't leave Nintendo. At the same time, Nintendo is not leaving them. And this is a very, very important factor. This is very
Mm.
important factor because when you see, when you project yourself for 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, now depending if you are creating I would say indie game or double A game or triple A title, etc. It takes more or less time. But the thing that is very unique to Nintendo, they were telling me, we are a more than 1 century old company. So when everyone is moving in all direction and is agitating, moving too much, too much small things, is basically we are observing other people, and they
Mm.
are very diligent in their action. They know what they are building because they are looking always at the long term. And this is what I recommend to all the companies. You look at the long term and you can see the benefit of it. Of course, it takes more time. Of course, it's more complicated. But look at it right now when you have games like, for example, what Kojima is doing with Death Stranding. Look at Elden Ring. Look
Mm.
at all these kind of incredible games that are released from Japan with
Mm.
this high quality. That's fantastic. Of course, there are some cons also in Japan, definitely, and crunch is part of it still. But there is it's always very difficult to find the balance, but I think they are trying as much as possible to never fire people. That's a very, very important aspect in Japan, and I
Mm.
think that this aspect as the long term planning, long-term vision of the company, and especially the maturity of how we take care of the employees. I would like many companies, um, a big corporation in the Western countries, the big publisher, etc., hardware maker, etc. I would like them to have a little bit of this maturity to understand that what they are doing, yes, it's good maybe for let's say, the shareholders and the investors, but they will not create, um, they will not improve this industry. They will not create a stability for this industry that way. And eventually the industry will suffer from the greediness and how greedy some big corporations are. And it's just like, no, we are making a tons of money, but we are just firing because basically we can. And
Mm.
you know that recently there was the big topic about Tango Gameworks that was closed, and they were making a game, Hi-Fi Rush, that was
Mm.
receiving some awards, and basically they were just closed by Microsoft, and no one could understand why. How can you say on one side that we want to bring a great game, indie type of games to the Game Pass and everything, and you have a game and you have a studio that is receiving award that everyone loves the game, and you say, okay, we just shut it down because basically we just shut it down because maybe we lack a very good producer or something like that. Instead
Mm.
of recruiting this excellent producer, you just shut it down. I think it's a lack of in a way that's a lack of maturity. Of course, people will always be able to tell me, no, but Alex, it's more complicated than that, and
Mm.
there are many things happening internally. But yes, but saying these kind of things is not changing the fact that Japanese companies are not doing that, and they
Mm.
are doing pretty well right now.
Mm.
So maybe the first thing first is to be very humble, to look at the values and to look at the very long term. That is very important.
Yeah, so a lot of big picture thinking, looking at the long term. And I think there's something important to be said about the performance of employees once they feel like they're secure in what they're doing and putting their passion in, right? The current situation, most likely, if you would do a case study or an actual study around it, would indicate that people overall are spending a lot of time worrying and not feeling secure in their position, no matter where you're working. So I'm wondering what effect that has towards this incredible medium, and then thinking about the long-term relationship of games in general, in terms of productivity and creativity and everything, right? And managing, for that matter.
Mm. If you put the people into, I would say, the right mindset, and you are leading with empathy,
Mm.
and you are preventing mismanagement, I can tell you there will be so many things that would be so much better in the game industry. That's
Mm.
for sure. Uh, uh, you know, when you are a leader, there is an expression in Japan that is called KY, which is a kuki yomi, which is basically means reading the air,
Reading
reading
the
the
air.
atmosphere, and basically that's it. That's something that is very important in Japan. You know, sometimes, of course, it depends on people, but basically, when you enter a room, or when you, for example, you know, you want to move to a new, I don't know, house, apartment, you enter and you have this kind of feeling that
Mm.
you cannot
Mm.
really describe. And there are sometimes you say, wow, I feel very good here, and sometimes you say, there is something that is off. There is nothing off from you see it, but you feel the energy. And sometimes you can feel the positive energy, and you can feel basically the negative energy. And this is something that you should always be careful. Myself, for example, and I have experienced that when you enter a studio and there is like pure silence, this is what I would call the silence of death. It's
Mm.
like people don't talk, don't communicate with each other. I even do not know why they are in an office, honestly. Because they
Mm.
are so afraid to talk, because there will be a manager that will do some micromanagement and telling them, you cannot talk, you cannot do this, you cannot do that. You can feel in the air that this is very heavy. And when you see some people, when you enter a studio, that are smiling, that are enjoying, then basically you understand that they have the right prerequisite to succeed in their game. Of course, everything is on the spectrum. So you go from, you can be on one side of the spectrum to the other side. So things should be kind of balanced. The point is not to say to people, I will bring you happiness by bringing you constantly football tournament and a ping pong tournament, and you want coffee and what kind of coffee and this kind of
Mm.
things and what kind of breakfast. I think the first thing first to show that you respect people is to value them as human beings of what
Mm.
they are and to protect them. Myself, I have never prevented anyone to take some vacation. On contrary, of course, I was in Japan, so it's easier to say, but I was pushing people to take vacation. And
Mm.
that's something that all the managers and all the leaders should do. And this is very important because heads will be important. Also, if you can put as a rule, no crunch. Yes, they can be. In Japan, there is this kind of latent extra hours that people are doing. I was doing also myself, where people, when you say that you work, let's say from 9:30 to 6:30, but no one wants to leave at 6:30 because no one wants to be the first one to leave the place.
Yep.
So there is this kind of common understanding that everyone can start leave the place around 7:30. So that's it. Then after, depending your commuting, you're at home between 8 to 9 p.m., something
Mm.
like that. But
Mm.
this is the way it works. But this is kind of acceptable, and this is not crunch. This is much more based on the culture.
Yep.
But you put in place something. You need to have a kind of empathy for people. You need also to look at uh, people with a different life. For example, myself, I was always extremely careful about people who can have some, I would say, some a little bit problem depending the commuting because it's putting too much pressure on them to try to arrange, and also very careful, for example, when I had some single mother. Why? Because basically they are in a situation and they
Yep.
need to work, and basically we need to make it work for them. So this is also the responsibility when you are hiring people. You cannot, of course, there is, I would say, the general rules, but you can bend them to make it work for everyone. And
Mm.
there are some people who are, for example, having a lot of stress on the Monday morning.
Mm.
Why? Because they have some little bit of anxiety or panic attack to know that everything that will happen during the week, like
Mm.
they are too much. It's too much for them to process. So you can be a little bit more flexible for them to say, okay, take it easy on the Monday morning, because after when they do the action, progressively it goes better and better and better. So there are many things like that. Is at the end of the day, managing a company is managing people, and each
Yep.
person is unique. So you need to be reflective of this person and to have the right balance. People need to work, and not only to play and not only to enjoy. People need to work, but they need to work in a very good atmosphere, in a very good setting. They need to have, of course, for example, it is unacceptable that the companies do not provide, we say, the right tools, the right computer, the right screen. They do not provide, very important, the right chair.
Mm.
That's super important because you are seated like at least 8 hours a day. So this
Mm.
is super important for the back, or people cannot rest, or this kind of things. So all these kind of tiny things are super important. There is, it's really like tuning a radio. You need to have this flow of work where people feel good about working and they want to do more by themselves because they
Yep.
are driven by a vision,
Yep.
and everything that can help them to go to this vision is taken into consideration.
Mm.
Everything. So
Mm.
it's very important. You need to take things in a holistic way and not only from one element. It's too few. You need to look at the culture of the people, from which country they are, in which culture, in which country you are, because that will be the norm of the work. You need to look at the personal history of the person. You need to understand also, you can do a disc test where you can see the personality of this person. You can
Yep.
go stronger with Meyer-Briggs if it's necessary, but this is usually more for self-development. And
Mm.
then you look at what is the life of the people, what they can work, how they like to work, and these kind of things. And you know, everyone is making mistakes. Everyone. I have done a lot. Everyone is doing mistakes. That's not the point. The point is to grow, improve, to grow. And then because you are growing, you want to continue to self-develop yourself, and you want to bring that to other person. So this is very important. Everyone is following its own path, and everyone needs to go more mature through time. It can go different, and everyone is reacting differently to stress. So
Yeah.
it's really a process. But if you make it as something, at least for the manager, and that's my perspective with Ace Consulting, as something that is professionally very important,
Mm.
then basically you will do what is necessary to achieve that. And because that will be one of your goal and one of your objective for the long term, to make the best game as possible.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things that go into that, right? And so what I'm hearing you say is that in order for you to have well-being in a good game, if you want people to work, you need to have them be able to do that effortlessly, buy into the big picture, the idea, the big vision that you have. But also you need to make it frictionless to have access to the right things that the people need in order for them to do it, right? Because friction, I always say friction is a superpower. If it's very difficult for you to be at a work desk to have a good feeling in your body, then you're not going to do it. If it's very difficult for you to get the informations that you need in order for you to continue to work, it's probably not going to happen. So reducing the friction is probably one of the things that you're saying here. And then, use the tools that are available. Take a disc evaluation with a professional, or just get it done, or you can use something else. But you really want to know. You want to take, what I'm hearing you say is, take inventory of who is working for you. What is the studio makeup, and then make sure you have your values aligned towards the vision, so people can, in crisis, kind of operate more freely and more efficient, where they don't have to think.
Yeah, each person is a different story, and that's the
Mm.
beauty of it. When
Mm.
you when myself, I always like to work with teams. I like to be a leader, and I like to work with people because each time it's very unique for each person. But this is the same as an orchestra. You are the maestro, and you need to create uh, from notes. You need to create this harmony, and because I can see from your Lego painting on the back that you love Japan. Uh,
Mm.
Japan is all about harmony. This is what people should try to get. Right now, we can see a lot, for example, people talking about what is your ikigai, and what you like, what you are good at, where you can make money, etc. But I think this is how can you bring harmony in your life, and that's one for the people, and for the company perspective, how can you bring harmony in your studio? And of course, all the studio, all the publisher, the companies have a different culture. Again, there is sometimes people are asking me, "Oh, should I do exactly what you are saying?" And I'm telling them, each your company is unique. So basically, the reply will be unique to your company, depending your standard, where you are in your development stage,
Mm.
how much money you have. But if there is, let's say, a company that is doing pretty well, I recommend to all companies, for their managers, and if they can, for their employees, to have some coaching program. That's very
Mm.
important, to basically to bring this sense of awareness. And when people will say, "Yeah, but what is exactly the result after 1 hour?" There is no result after 1 hour. This is basically, you need to invest in people, so people feel good and they will remain in your company. There will be less turnover, and basically, because there is less turnover, people will learn to work better and better together, and they will make better and better games until you are successful, and that will be it. That's a very important. But there are so many things, in term of management. Is When there is some crunch, let's consider that way. If there is some crunch, that means that there was not a good management at the top.
Mm.
There was not a good planning, there was not a good budgeting, or there was not a good choice or choices. I give you an example. If you have the choice, basically, if you are a small size company and you say, "I want to make my game," what are you doing? You have three options, for example, for your engine. Do you want to create your own engine? 6 months time, 6 months of runway that you are using for that, or 1 year or 2 years, whatever. Or you are using Unity, depending on the engineers that you have and the knowledge, or you are using basically Unreal. Which one? Depending your need. And many things are driven by ego in this industry. And many
Mm.
people are trying to, they are very small, they are very small in finance, but they dream so big. That's not the
Mm.
problem. But they have to be realistic at the end, that they want to build an aircraft carrier just to go to fish. That's impossible. Now there are some fantastic tools like Unity 3D and like Unreal Engine. The Unreal 5 is incredible. So use the tool that exists and you will save a lot of time. And because you will save time, you will save money. Because you will save money, you will save a lot of pressure time. And saving the pressure time, because usually the stress is coming at the top. And then
Mm.
after it goes down, and it's coming to the people and say, oh my God, the management is panicking. What are we doing? And we put pressure on the mid manager that is putting pressure on the manager of the department, can be a producer, a lead game designer, etc. And everyone will put pressure on everyone at the end. So that's it's completely crazy, but it could have been prevented. These kind of things.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I see this too. There's a lot of people that are trying to reinvent the wheel and do everything from scratch and do it on their own. And it goes from leadership to building your own engine to needing to get insane amounts of financing because they think they need to build this huge thing before even validating. And I think there's something to say about borrowing from others that have either built something already, but also, lean against the ecosystem of games as an industry, as an entity. Because
And it's
ultimately, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, it's proving the lack of maturity of the industry still.
Mm,
I'm not putting it. It's a generalization. It's a
mm,
little bit caricature what I'm saying, but I need to be very generic to give the message. The example that I'm always giving is that when you have a filmmaker, they are basically using certain camera. They will use the Sony, they will use the Alexa camera and these kind of things. Who is developing its own camera to make its own movie? Okay,
mm,
I know one person, that James Cameron. Okay, who is James Cameron? Maybe I would say, I don't know, Rockstar, maybe is the equivalent, or a few games like that, few companies, few studio, and this is understandable. This is completely understandable, but we need to see also the direction that's, that basically the industry is going to. It's more
mm,
and more expensive,
mm,
becoming impossible to manage if you are trying to build your own engine. That is not good management. That is called ego. That's completely different. If you believe that you can do better than Epic Games and Unreal 5, okay, but what would be the cost? You need to put everything together. Yeah, you can say it's important to have our own engine. The importance is to do the great games or to have your own engine. Which one? And you need to put things into perspective. Certain companies need to have their own engine, but they can afford to do it. You
mm.
know, when you have a game like The Last of Us, when you have especially GTA, and I mean, probably for me the the best well executed game in terms of engine that I have seen is Red Dead Redemption 2. I mean, the engine, it's so organic. This is so incredible that you feel that you are inside this world. And it's even not, it's in my top 5 game ever.
Mm, mm,
Uh, but it's not my favorite game ever.
mm.
My favorite game ever is Witcher 3, which is just incredible for so many reasons, especially in terms of narration. The maturity of the narration is very good, and
Is
I
this,
really like it. But it's less impressive in terms of
mm,
engine, right? In terms of how realistic it can be. But you know that the next Witcher will be made on Unreal. It
yeah.
says a lot. it says a lot because I would like to have more companies doing like CD Projekt is doing. This is the smart way to do. It's maybe less people within the company, but more happy people, easier to work with the fantastic tools, and then after they can create outstanding games. And for the one who can afford to have their own engine that can really compete, for example, what they are doing with Last of Us or especially
Mm.
Rockstar, and they
Mm.
can compete with Unreal, good for them. Good for them, but they are the very few. So uh, the companies need to be very humble and to look at themselves. Not everyone is a rock star. Saying the contrary um, would be naive at best. And it's definitely not mature to consider that way. But the point is to work more efficiently. If
Mm.
you have better tools, then you need less crunch. Creating an engine that is very buggy and everything, well, basically, this is the best way for the AAA title to create a culture of crunch. 100%.
I think it's a good golden nugget there, and I think there's an underlying principle to this, right? Where trying to do everything yourself just because you want to look back and see this is what I have done. What is
Yeah.
important again, right? What's the vision? Is the vision that you're building something that is being received incredible and people have this immersive experience and you can look back at the whole picture of that you've created, or is your goal to look back and be like, look at all the steps that I've created,
Mm.
look at all
Yeah.
the things that I've had my hands on?
For me, I will always look at. There are always some, I'd say, some some unique companies, but
Mm,
basically, let's take for example Breath of the Wild, that many consider the best game ever made.
mm,
Okay, why is it so good? Is it because of the engine? The engine is extraordinary. There have been, maybe you have seen on YouTube, there are some comparison when you shoot an arrow and you see the difference with the other games where you shoot an arrow like Horizon, like I don't know, Assassin's Creed, whatever, and you see how perfect it is in terms of engine. Yes,
mm,
it's very well made. It's very organic, same as the Red Dead Redemption. But why is it so good? Is it because of the engine? They have made their own engine because they can afford it. No, it's so good because basically Nintendo has is one of the probably top three company in terms of game design. And myself, I consider that Nintendo is the best company worldwide by very, very far in terms of level design. There is the game design, but within the game design, there is the level design. They are the best. Everyone who has played their game, whatever it is, it can be Zelda, it can be Luigi's Mansion, it can be Mario. In terms of level design, they are the best. Point. But then, in terms of game design, everyone loved their games because the game design is so good. They have revolutionized basically the way to play, and it was when they did Mario in 3D for the Nintendo 64, and then after they're always bringing something new. They just reinvented basically the sandbox with Breath of the Wild right now.
mm,
They completely
mm,
changed it, and
mm,
they are good for that. Why Rockstar is so good? Is it because of their engine? Their engine is unbelievable, probably the best I consider. But uh, is it because of that? No, it's because the narrative is so powerful. Because the storyline and how you feel attached to this world is so good. Whatever it can be GTA, you have the feeling you can do everything, and that's the beauty of it. But the narrative, the screenplay, the way everything branched together and is connected is extraordinary. So what is important is the talent, is the game design, the narration, is the script, the level design, is all these kind of things. And then after you have the technicity on the back, which is basically the engine, you have the choice, but you need to be self-aware of your strengths and your limitation. That's always
mm,
extremely important.
mm.
And if more companies apply that, basically probably they will be able to fix a lot of things.
Yeah, I think you're addressing something very important. I mean, who are you making this thing for? The player. what does the player want? They want to be immersed in a different world. They don't want to be in the reality. They don't want to be aware of what's going on outside. And so in essence, your game is not about the small watts and features and everything. The features are built to drive yourself into this experience where, stepping outside of what your day to day is and into this new immersive world. And then there's different motivations, of course, but the player, in essence, right, wants to forget themselves whilst being them. They want to merge with the game. For a little bit, they just want to disappear and become the character or the objective of the game or whatever.
Well, completely agree. One thing, the essence of the game, I mean, it's in the name. It's game. It's to play, and you can play seriously or you can play to have fun. But most of the time, having fun will be very, very important. And many successes have been based on that. And I have the feeling that so many studios, so many managers are missing that point. You look at what was happening at the beginning of this year when we had the surprise success of Palworld. Is it the best looking game? No. Is it the most kind of innovative? Not really. But is it fun? Definitely. And then you had the same with then after people were surprised about Helldivers 2 because there was already Helldiver, and they said why is it so relevant? Well, because people really enjoy and having fun playing together, and that was the point. Is that's crazy to say in 24. And if you want to be more successful with a game, you need to make a game fun. If your game is boring, why are you releasing it? Why do you expect from that? Quick bugs? Maybe, but you will not go very long for that. Your game needs to be fun for the people. That's very simple. And then after, yes, there are different kind of fun, as you were mentioning. It can be to enter a new world, to feel that you are entering something that is kind of escaping the reality that we are, living something different, definitely, but it's always based on fun. And when you have a game that you feel that is controlled through a checklist, look at how, for example, some games, Suicide Squad, completely failed. This is so much a checklist game. Like, okay, we do this. The, the company completely lost its common sense.
Yeah.
They have one of the best studio in the world. Everyone loves Batman, so let's not do Batman because otherwise it will be successful. Lost of common sense. So, and let's put so much pressure on the team to make something complex as a game as a service with all the different characters that no one wants to play. No one really care about the Suicide Squad. And basically it's making not a fun game, and that's why people are not playing online. And when you just check the players on Steam, you can see the result, and that's terrible. It's not terrible for me for Warner. It's terrible for me for the Rocksteady team and for all the people that were putting all the effort for years and years and years to make this game a reality. This is very sad because I know that if they have made a Batman traditional game as this is their forte, they would have sold already more than 20 million units without any problem because they are so skillful. They are so good in what they were doing, but they were just pushed to do something that they don't know how to do. It makes no sense. And look at Skull and Bones. 11 years of production. There are so many, and you can check on YouTube, so many videos, so many elements that are less realistic, less well made than Black Flag that was released in 2012, I think. Come on. It's, you need to have this kind of common sense and check, and you need to know where you are bringing your production. So management has a very, very big responsibility on the well-being of the team. Of course, this is very true also that people need to take care of their well-being by themselves. This is also very important. I'm
Yeah.
not minimizing one compared to the other one. Absolutely not. This is not what I'm saying. But myself, as a ACE Consulting Group, what I'm pushing is I'm here to guide, to help, to support, to challenge, to give a second opinion, second view to the top management. So basically, they can reflect on what they are doing, or at least they can try to be better manager, better leader, doing less mismanagement, less mistakes equals less stress, equals less crunch, equals more well-being for the people. That's extremely important. And I think it has to come from all the different directions. So there is no one magic bullet. There is different things to put in place. So it will come from all the different directions.
Yeah, absolutely. Creating a horizontal company and then everyone needs to work on their own, but you also need to work on it together. And then you have to have the leadership, right?
The
Um,
leadership is so important. Leadership, they need to agree on what they want to build and how they want to build for it. There are many companies who are doing incredible games because they say maybe customer first or player first or for something like that. But then after, how is it internally? How is that? How can you stand long term in that way? So for me, it's always I'm always so sad when I see people that are laid off not because of themselves, because we have seen that even if you are creating a fantastic game like a Hi-Fi Rush, well, basically the team has been kind of punished for that because whatever is the success, whatever the award you receive, it didn't change anything of the politics.
yeah.
And that's where the top management needs to have a compass. They need to understand what they are doing, and they are completely lacking common sense. Because basically, what happened, for example, in that case, uh, Microsoft really hurt their image. And of course, you can go through with the money always, but basically, they hurt their image. And this is sad because I think that Microsoft and Xbox and what Phil Spencer was building was great. So there is no reason to hurt your own image after doing so great things so far. Why would you do that? There is no reason. So yes, there is always pressure coming from above, but I think that we need to apply. The most important thing is always to protect the company interest, but not at the expense of the people. And if you can keep this balance, you are a very good leader in that case.
Very nice. Alexi, I want to be respectful of your time and the people listening in's time as well. So, is there anything else you would like to talk about, or where can people find you? It's pretty much up to you. This is your time to say and discuss whatever you want.
Yes, so if there are some companies who, with a manager, who need some guidance and executive coaching, they can always reach me. I think the most easiest way is always on LinkedIn. I'm posting quite a lot, so I think I'm easy to find. Otherwise, they can always people through LinkedIn on my profile or through my website, aceconsultinggroup.biz. They can book some time with me using Calendly, and there is always a clarity call. And myself, I really like to take time with people, basically because that's very important to give, I would say, good time to people to go through their problem and trying to help them as much as we can. What I'm doing right now is a tailor-made solution for each person, for each company, because each situation is different. And I really hope, I would say, outside of me, that all the gaming companies, publishers, studio will basically will uh, will improve in terms of maturity. So everyone progressively will take mental health of the team, well-being of the team, and also the coaching program in a very important place. And they will make it something that is central. And basically, they will understand that with uh, better well-being for everyone, better management is bringing better well-being. Basically, they will be able to create better games, and the better games basically will bring fantastic sales, and they will achieve. I think they will achieve wonders. So, and thank you very much for inviting me today, because it's always a real pleasure to discuss together. It's a very large topic at the same
For
time,
sure.
very large topic. But I really enjoy your podcast because it's raising the awareness of this important factor in a very different point of views from different people from different background, different expertise, different skills, and I think this is what is important right now for the gaming.
Thank you so much, Alexi, and thank you, listener. I hope to hear you tune in again.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Thank you very much for having me. Thanks.
Thanks for checking out this episode of GameWell, the podcast to a thriving future in games. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so that you never miss an episode.